guys, what's up? My name is Rachel and welcome back to my channel, Reading with Remy. Today I'm going to be bringing you my October wrap-up. In the month of October I managed to read 9 books, and I actually, for the first time in a long time, have almost all of them actually owned. Only one of them did I read unscribed, and we'll talk about kind of why that happened in a little bit because I actually do want to own that book, I just don't at the moment. One of these I actually finished on the very last day of September, but it was on my October TBR for the Remy's Bookopoly, so I just kind of waited to talk about it. And I finished it the day before October started, so I figured, it's okay. It's fine. I'm still gonna count it for October. So anyway, I'm just gonna jump into these. I'm doing them in the order that I finished them, which took me a minute, but I got it figured out. So we're just gonna run through them really quick. I did, my TBR video for November should be up. If not, it'll be the next video that's put up. But I did manage to read everything on my October TBR. I'll talk about that a little bit more on my wrap-up. On my TBR for November. So if it's up, I'll leave it linked. If it's not, look forward to that. So anyway, I'm just going to jump straight into these. And yeah, so cool. So the first book that I read in October / the last day of September is Avatar: The Last Airbender: The Promise. This is the first trade in the Avatar comics that come out post Avatar: The Last Airbender, following the events that ended in the TV show, and just kind of how they rebuild the world and restore all of these kingdoms and stuff like that. Basically getting Fire Nation rule out of all the other territories. I really enjoyed this. I like how it followed Zuko and Avatar and the whole gang, and just kind of seeing them continue to mature and make decisions of how basically kids are going to rebuild the world, because they are all really young if you think about it. They're all teenagers, and I definitely could not deal with this much unrest at 16 years old, but they're getting it done. Anyway, I really enjoyed this, and I love that the art style, it honestly feels like you're just watching more of the series. It's really good. So I really enjoyed that. It felt like I was just watching the TV show again, which, to be honest with you, has become one of my favorite shows. I never watched it until it came out on Netflix. I've seen Korra before it came, before Avatar was on Netflix, so I kind of watched them backwards, but so good. If you've not watched the show, you need to, and once you've watched it, you need to pick these up because they're really good. I ended up giving this 5 out of 5 stars. Just really enjoyed it. Love seeing the world again. I am dying to pick up the second one. The next book that I read officially in October, also for my TBR, is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is obviously a book of the month from, I want to say, back in February. Embarrassing, I know, I just now read it, and I've had it since then. This is the first book of the month I ever ordered, fun fact. But I really, really enjoyed this. Everyone had always said that it was super good. I mean, I've never heard a bad review about this. Everyone loved it, it was super positive. So I honestly was kind of afraid I wasn't going to like it because everyone else did. So I was a little apprehensive going in, which is probably why I put it off as long as I did. But it was October, and I think I landed on... No, actually, this was a friend pick, so my sister picked it for me. But it was the right time of year, so I went for it. And honestly, it was really good. I found myself the whole time trying to figure out the twist because everyone said you wouldn't figure it out, so I was determined to get it first. I didn't get it. I got it wrong. But I tried really, really hard. I kept looking at all these obscure people because I was like, maybe it's one of them. Obviously, it's gonna be one of them. It would be the least obvious choice. Still got it wrong. I'm really glad it wasn't who I was afraid it was going to be at the beginning, because I'm really glad he's innocent. So that was a nice twist for me. But yeah, this book was awesome. I am 85% sure, without even looking at my handy dandy sheet, that this got 5 out of 5 stars, but let me verify that. Yeah, I totally did. No surprise at all. Really enjoyed this. It was I have never really read a thriller. I've wanted to, but I have never read one. Other than Dark Matter, which is a sci-fi thriller, so it's not a conventional thriller. So this was my first time reading a conventional thriller, and I really, really enjoyed it, and it kind of spurred a little bit more of my TBR, which you'll see, of the books I read in October, which you'll see in a second. So it was good, it put me in the mood, and now I want to read all of them. So I really enjoyed this. If you have not picked it up, please pick it up. You're doing yourself a favor. It's not scary, so if you're afraid of reading thrillers because they're scary, this one is a good one to get you started. Alright, so the next book that I'm going to talk about is the one that I don't own a copy of, and that is Poems for the End of the World by Katie Weismer. I want this book, I just haven't had a chance to get it yet. The only way that it was available in print format for pre-order was on Barnes & Noble, and I've had bad experience with Barnes & Noble, and I just haven't gotten around to getting it on Amazon since it's out now. But I read it on Scribd, really enjoyed it. I've always been a fan of Katie's work. I loved The Sweetest Kind of Poison. It's one of my favorite poetry books, and I didn't love the Anti-Virginity Pact, but I liked it. And she's just a booktuber that we really respect and love watching her videos. Small plug. If you see this before the Goodreads Choice Awards are over, please go into the poetry if you've read it and write in Poems for the End of the World for the poetry category. We're trying to get Katie onto the next round, so yeah, because we need to support our self-publishers. But anyway, I really enjoyed this poetry collection. I think I liked it more than The Sweetest Kind of Poison. I loved that it dealt a lot with self-empowerment and, you know, just being yourself and loving yourself and not letting other people take away from your self-love, which I really enjoyed. I'm definitely going to be buying a copy at some point. Kind of want to see how long it takes her to do another round of author-signed copies, because it would be cool to have one of those. So we'll see. I'm just playing around with it, but eventually I do want to get this book. I actually gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. Just a couple poems were just not my speed, if I remember correctly. But still, excellent collection of poetry. Definitely the best collection of poetry I've read all year. So go check it out if you're interested. Alright, so the next book that I read was back onto my TBR from the game, and that is Starry Eyes by Jen Bennett. This is a book that has been hopping around my TBR for months now, and I always end up substituting it for something else because I just haven't been in the mood, but I finally made myself read it, and I honestly enjoyed it. I didn't think I wasn't going to. That's not why I was avoiding it, just other ones seemed more interesting to me, I guess. Like, I wasn't super in love with the premise, and then I read it and I actually really enjoyed it. So this is about a girl who likes to plan everything in her life, like down to a T, wants all the lists, all the plans. And her mother convinces her to go on a glamping trip with an old friend of hers that's kind of had like a rough year. And she ends up going on this trip and finds out that a boy that she was best friends with, and then for various reasons they became like didn't even talk to each other anymore, is on this trip. And so she has to deal with being with him and dealing with her friend who's going through a lot, and just a lot of drama. And basically they end up getting stranded in the wilderness, and it's all about them coming together to get themselves out of the wilderness and, you know, maybe finding some romance along the way. But I really enjoyed this book. I didn't think I was going to, but it was actually really cute. I liked the relationship more than I expected to. I think Jen Bennett does a really good job with like quirky, unusual characters and helping them find people who are just as quirky and unusual as them. I just feel like she has good representation and not cookie cutter characters, which is refreshing. So I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars, if I remember correctly. Oh, I do. Not that it wasn't fantastic, it wasn't bad. It was just kind of, you know, like your normal cutesy young adult contemporary. So it got 3.5 because it didn't blow me away with anything extravagant, but it was still really good. So the next book that I read in October is The Night Swim by Megan Golden. This is another book of the month pick, a more recent one, so I'm doing a little bit better. But this one, I mainly got this one because I have heard a lot of things about The Escape Room, which is her first one. And then when Book of the Month had one of hers, I was like, why not? So this is about a girl who runs a true crime podcast, and she has decided to go to, I believe, a town in North Carolina. It's set in one of the Carolinas, if I remember correctly. I believe North Carolina. But she goes to North Carolina / South Carolina to investigate a trial, or to like report on a trial that's happening there about a rape case, basically, a rape allegation. And while she's there, she starts getting these mysterious notes from someone whose sister died in the same town years and years before, basically asking her to look into her sister's case. This was a really good mystery novel, in my opinion. I really enjoyed seeing the two different cases at the same time. I liked her podcast like plugs because she put in like the podcast episodes within the story, which was kind of cool. So it was just kind of interesting to see how they kind of wove together, and just seeing like, because they do connect, which I did not see coming. So it was just really good. I enjoyed the writing style a lot. It was really easy to get into. It was just kind of those things that you like devour without even thinking about it, and then you're like, oh, the book's over? Okay. So it was really good. I enjoyed it. It definitely makes me want to read The Escape Room. It confirmed for me that this is an author that I want to try. So yeah, it was a good book. I wouldn't say it like blew me away. It was a little, I don't want to say predictable, but I wasn't necessarily shocked at who it was. So maybe I'm just a good detective. Probably not though, because I did not get a Good Girl's Guide to Murder. So, but I really enjoyed this. I gave this 5 stars. I think I just really like thrillers. So unless they're like boring, they're probably gonna get high ratings from me because I just find them entertaining to read. So I definitely recommend this though if you're interested in it. It's very, very good. So the next book that I read in the month of October was Our Dark Duet by Victoria Schwab. This is actually kind of a fat book, so it's kind of hard to hold. I gotta figure out how I want to hold it. I guess like that's gonna be the best way. It's chunkier than you think it is, but the font's really big. Anyway, I read This Savage Song probably 2 years ago, if not longer, and I've had Our Dark Duet for at least 2 years. And it's just been sitting on my shelf. It's not that I didn't like This Savage Song, because I did. The concept is really cool. Honestly, all of Victoria Schwab, or V.E. Schwab, all of her books have really awesome concepts. They're very, I guess, concept driven, because they're not even necessarily like story or character driven. They just have incredible concepts, and it just like carries it. That's all it takes, is an incredible concept from her. So I finally picked it up. I really enjoyed it. It honestly kind of made me mad at the ending though. Like, I almost wish there was a third one. Almost. Sometimes I'm definitely one of those people that's like, it doesn't always have to be a trilogy. You can just make it 2 books. But for some reason, a part of me really wants there to be a 3rd book in this series. Like, I just feel like there are some things that she could have wrapped up. Like, there's still some things happening in a different place other than Verity that I'm like, you could totally make a book and conclude that. Like, I don't know. I want to know what's going on outside of Verity. So, yeah. If you don't know what this is about, God, it's hard to describe. Basically, violent acts create monsters in this world, and it takes place in basically like a big city. It's not really even a country. It's called Verity, and it's basically, the first book is very like mafia vibes. There's like 2 opposing sides. Feels like a mafia. And then this one is more like the whole world has just gone to shit and everybody just needs to save everybody. So the mafia kind of comes out of play in this one, which is kind of interesting. Either way, it's a really good, interesting world. Basically, like I said, violent acts create monsters. There are 3 types of monsters that are prevalent: Sunai, Malachi, and Korsai. A lot of eyes. Sunai, there are the rarest kind, and they come out of like catastrophic events, basically, where a lot of innocents die. So like mass shootings and things like that. So they're very rare. Malachi are the most prevalent, and they are kind of the most annoying. And then of course there are the Korsai, which kind of remind me of like those creepy things in I Am Legend, if you've ever seen that movie. The people who were like the zombies, basically. I don't know, Korsai are really weird and creepy. So honestly, this was kind of a perfect book for October. Lots of creepy vibes if you think about it. Monsters like eating souls, not fun. But this is a really, really incredible concept. I'm doing a horrible job of talking about it, I can already tell, but you definitely need to check these out, especially if you like any of Victoria Schwab's books. These honestly might be my favorite concepts of anything that I've read. So, like, definitely check these out. And I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Really good, really entertaining, just not quite like top of the line like of some of the books that I've read. So, yeah, but definitely glad I finished this. I feel so accomplished now that I've finished this duology. It's not even funny, y'all. And it was good, so I don't know what took me so long, but it's over, it's done, it's here. I'm glad I read it. Victoria Schwab is still amazing. Definitely one of those authors that you just buy it without even knowing what it's about. You're like, oh, it's Victoria, okay, we're good. We just need it. So, really enjoying it. Alright, this next book that I'm going to talk about, I'm really excited about, that I finally read, and that is Mistborn: The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. If you're on BookTube at all, like, you've heard so much about this book. And I've owned it for a really long time, and I've been so intimidated by its size, the fact that it's high fantasy with a complex magic system, and the hype on BookTube. But I finally got my hands on the audiobook on Libby, and I'm so glad I read it. It was really good. The concept of this is just really just kind of blows your mind. It's another one of those things where like I said earlier, Victoria Schwab has really incredible concepts. Brandon Sanderson has really cool concepts. So basically, the magic system in this world involves metals and people who can ingest them and then burn them to have like special abilities. and basically there's a group of rebels that are trying to overthrow the Lord Ruler, which is like obviously the ruler of the kingdoms, who's just like a really nasty guy. He's awful. Brandon Sanderson definitely knows how to write a twisted villain, so I really enjoyed this. The magic system is really incredible. Honestly, I think that's what sets it apart, because other than that, it's just like a ragtag band of thieves trying to pull a heist, basically, except for the heist is killing someone. So it's kind of a predictable plot line if you think about it, but as far as the magic system, it's just like, you're just sitting there like, how did he come up with all of this? So that's what makes it really good. And I liked our main character, Vin, a lot. She's definitely one of those like chosen one tropes, but somehow it wasn't like tedious and overdone. I don't know. He just put a nice twist on it that made it actually kind of enjoyable for it to be the chosen one trope. So definitely enjoyed this. And also I will say that Brandon Sanderson like takes risks. Because one of the things I hate is when there's like a giant battle and no one of importance dies. And you're just like, that wasn't even high stakes. This book is high stakes. I'm still not over what happens. So if you haven't read it, do yourself a favor, pick up this chunky floppy book and read it. It's good. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. The magic system is probably what bumped it up, because like I said, otherwise it's kind of like a typical fantasy novel, but the magic system is kind of what elevated it for me. So 4 out of 5 stars, solid read, definitely recommend. The next book that I read is also a series that I really needed to just get on with it, basically. And that is Hunting Prince Dracula by Kerri Maniscalco. This is book 2 in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. There are 5 books in this series. This takes place in the late 19th century. Most of them do, actually. The first one follows, obviously, Jack the Ripper. This one is Dracula. There's also Houdini, and I don't know what the last 2 are. Don't ask me. It's not that relevant, I suppose. But basically, these all deal with kind of like serial killers of that time, if you think about it, because Dracula kind of was a serial killer. He just sucked blood for his method of killing. But he's basically a serial killer. So these kind of all follow, like, famous villains of that time. I really enjoy these. I think the banter between the 2 main characters is the best part of any of these, honestly. The science is really cool, because basically our main character, Audrey Rose, is studying to become a mortician, and she meets originally one of her uncle's students. His name is Thomas Cresswell, and he is very swoon-worthy. I generally don't have bookish crushes, but yeah, Cresswell's always kind of been one for me. But basically their banter between the 2 of them is the best part of these novels. They go on all these adventures together, and I just love seeing them together. So this was really entertaining. This is set in Romania in a castle. They are competing for spots in a very prestigious school for like mortician arts. And basically the mystery of Dracula unravels while they're there. Very suspenseful, very spooky. It kind of fit perfectly with October, honestly. I feel like this one, out of any in the series, was the perfect October read. So I'm glad I read it. I'm hoping to read Escaping from Houdini soon. We'll see. I have the audiobook on hold on Libby, and it's like a 12-week wait, so maybe by the end of the year, maybe not. We'll see. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. Parts of it were kind of boring, but for the most part it was entertaining and just good fun. And the last book that I'm going to talk about, I actually finished on the last day of the month, so barely made it in, but I did it. And that is Of Fire and Stars by Audrey Coulthurst. I've had this book for a couple years now. I remember when it first came out, it was very hyped on BookTube because it was one of the first young adult fantasies we saw that had a female-female romance as the main characters. This one had a lot more political intrigue than I expected, so at the beginning it was kind of hard to get through. It started off kind of slow for me. It took me a while to get into it, but then when things started happening that were outside of like kingdom suspense between other kingdoms, like brewing rivalries, when stuff already started, like finally started to happen and escalate, then it got exciting. At the beginning I was kind of like, okay, cool, you're having an alliance, that's fun. But it got really good. The second one immediately went on my wish list when I finished it, so it can't be that bad. I really enjoyed the characters. It's definitely more of a character-driven thing for me as to why I still liked this. I loved the main characters, Mare and Danilea, I believe is how you say her name. And I love the magic system was intriguing. It feels like one that I've read about before, but it was still interesting. So I'm interested to see where this goes. It left on kind of a cliffhanger, So I need to see what happens. I need to know. So, and I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. Pretty solid, just took me a while to get into. So that's it for the month of October. I managed to read 9 books in October, which is really awesome for me. I'm very proud of that. I did start a new job where we get to read on the job if we're slow, so I think that's probably what happened with this actually pretty successful month, so 2 thumbs up for that. I'm hoping to continue that trend into the end of the year and be able to read more since my job is going into its off season, so we should be pretty slow, so we'll see. But yeah, for the most part, October was a really awesome reading month. I didn't read anything under 3.5 stars, which is a good month if you ask me. So definitely impressed, pretty proud of myself, excited to see what happens in November. So yeah, if you've read any of these books and have different thoughts, I would definitely love to hear about it in the comments. If you have similar thoughts, that's cool too, but I always love a good controversy. So if you have any differing thoughts, please put them in the comments below. I'd love to read them. Let me know if you have any good thriller recommendations, because I'm definitely in the market for some more awesome ones. We have all of Riley Sager's books now, so anything but Riley Sager, if you have any recommendations, please let me know. Would love to hear them and maybe read them. So yeah, be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more awesome content, and I'll see you guys in another video very soon.